Wayne Hart was also a notorious heroin dealer, responsible for destroying the lives of many. Now reformed, he looks back on his life with regret and relief. Regret for the misery he caused, relief that he somehow managed to survive.
I would have grown up in North Dublin, out around Coolock, Cabarrick area. I was always a bit bleeding wild when I was young. It kind of started simple, you know, born in the cornfields, you know what I mean? There used to be a farmer over there. They used to ask us to come over and burn the fields. They used to get paid for it.
To set fire to them,
To set fire to the fields, like, you know. And it kind of went on that, and I started kind of burning out sheds and cars and you name it, I'd burn her out, you know. And I just kind of got addicted to that kind of madness and that, you know, attention. You know, I loved it. My kind of socialisation as a kid in the family unit was a bit obscure because my kind of childhood heroes went from Martin Cattle, the General, you know what I mean, to Bobby Sands, you know what I mean, Republicans, because my family would be very, very mixed, you know. And then somewhere in the middle was all my morals and ethics and values, and you know, just kind of pulled apart. We kind of started with the armed robberies and then the drugs, you know what I mean? We didn't kind of do the whole robbing push bikes and sheds and horses and motorbikes and cars, and I was never really into that, you know what I mean? If I was in a robbed car, it was for a means to an end, like, you know what I mean?
Was it during the robberies, was that when your pal got killed, huh?
Yeah.
You sense about
that? The guns was after getting picked up. There was no robbery done that day, or no robbery getting done that day.
You just went to pick a gun up?
We went to pick the guns up, yeah, and the gun was loaded. The gun went out in the van, and he died. You know, he died, and we ended up getting jail for that.
How old was he?
He was 32. He'd have been a lot older than me at the time, like. He'd been about 10, 11 years older than me at the time.
Where did it hit him? What sort of gun was it?
It was a shotgun. It was a sawn-off. And kind of came through here, flew out this way, right through him.
He died instantly?
Yeah.
So what'd you do then when you got a dead man in the van? Because he wasn't driving, was he?
No. There was another chap driving, and he's away ever since. Do you know what I mean? He's gone. You know, I went as well, and I was getting locked up in Bleeding England when I was away. I was over from Malton then, and I got out, so the police were looking for me, so I decided to come back. You know what I mean? I had no choice. I was escorted, do you know what I mean, to the airport, and they were waiting on me. You know what I mean? So I came back here, and I ended up getting sentenced over here then for that. You know, we ended up in here, Mountjoy, but that was a breeding ground for me because I met a lot of people, you know what I mean, a lot of people that have since either been shot dead or have rose to the top and been shot dead, or they're out of the country, you know. A lot of my friends have been whacked over the years. Jail kind of saved my life somewhat. You know, really did. I know that's fucking probably strange to hear, but it did, you know what I mean? And then because of all the shit I kind of grew up in, the stuff that I'd done, you know, I would have still been selling drugs while I was in prison, you know what I mean? And a lot of drugs would have been getting sold in prison for me. And I remember a lot of stuff was caught in the prison, and the lads were all moved out, and there was nothing to say it was me. I got moved out for it as well, you know. But I kind of got to a point then when I started smoking heroin myself.
In the prison?
Yeah. And it was just a kind of way of coping, a way of dealing, you know what I mean? Because especially, you know, back then, it's the same now, like, you know. You go in and you have a name going in, and then you're in for a shooting, regardless of whether it was an accident or not. The dogs on the street don't hear it was an accident. I want to know it's an accident, you know what I mean? Whatever crew is around you, you know what I mean? I'm putting you up on the pedestal, and my name would have got used for so many different things and threatening people and this and that, and then I had to live up to it inside, you know. So then I done all sorts inside. You know
What were you charged with for the guy who died, and how much did you get?
I ended up getting, it was 10 years I got, but there was, I think it was 5 for the unlawful killing and 5 for the firearm. That's what I got in the end. And
how old were you then?
that one, I think I was 20, 21. 20 or 21, yeah. And then I kind of just went fucking haywire in prison. Do you know what I mean? I made a lot of connections then in prison, you know. Yeah, I made a lot of connections in prison. I would have got out then, and I was like, do you know what? I'd been dabbling with selling heroin. I had people selling heroin for me, you know what I mean, the late 80s, early 90s, and there was serious profit to be made off it over here. You know, probably cost me about 1,600 to get it. That was getting it back from England and all at the time. And I was dealing with a lot of Turks over there. They all ended up getting years, do you know what I mean? There was 3 of them, 3 family members. They all got 20 something years each they got. But I was dealing with them over there, you know, and then when I got back out, I kind of made contact again, and I was getting it a lot cheaper and making large profits on it, you know. But because eventually I thought I was controlling the drug fucking was controlling me. And then all just what came with it, you know what I mean, stepping over people, doing things, and then bringing in crack, you know what I mean, to sell, you know, because that was the new drug, it was the new thing, you know, and doing all that and going out and doing robberies to fund it, and, you know, I was never bleeding happy. I was always driven. I got something, I wanted more, you know what I mean. I had the best looking board, I wanted your board, you know. I had a good car, I wanted your car. I had a good house, I wanted your house. I was never happy, I was never content. I always wanted. I was always driven. You know, and I didn't care what I done, who I stepped over. That includes family, friends, my kids, you know, stuff that I kind of I came to regret. And then the heroin kind of took all that away. You know what I mean? I was kind of like, I was in a different world, different fucking zone, you know. And it just got to a point in my life now where I had a fucking enough. Do you know what I mean? I had enough. I knew I was either going to kill someone, I was going to end up getting a life sentence, or I was going to be killed. You know, a lot of my friends, even my best man at my wedding and all, they're all dead, they're all whacked. Do you know what I mean? This was what I'm dealing with, isn't it? You know, it's life or fucking death.
Staying alive, avoiding imprisonment, and remaining one step ahead of the competition was imperative for Wayne. He had to know his rivals' movements when the Garda were watching him, and know where he could purchase his weapons and wares. Wayne also had to know his market and compete with the prices of other dealers on the streets of Dublin.
I was kind of clever growing up. I always seen an area of money, you know what I mean, for an inn. You know, as I always say to someone, look for the inn. But out in that area, you know, like, you had to go into town to buy your hash. You know what I mean, any kind of drugs, you had to go into the Dublin city centre to get them. And we were a big Coolock, Cabarrick, it's a big area, you know what I mean, so there was a lot of youth, so there was a lot of demand, you know what I mean, so we got this bleeding brainwave. I don't know, you probably heard of King Scum, have you? Yeah. Over here. Heroin used to be sold in £10 packs, you know, and then he was the only one that had heroin, bringing it in with the Duns, with Christy Dunn and all them, and they all got locked up, and he pulled up the 40 punt like at the time, a £10 bag up to 40 quid, so hence he got the name. So what I done was, again, I seen a market and I put them from £40 down to £10, smaller bags, you know what I mean, the quantity was better. So I'd be giving batches to people, 16, and most people were getting 2 for selling 16. We used to give 3 or 4 for selling 16, so the batches were flying out quicker. They were smaller, but the stuff was stronger, you know what I mean? But people were, if I had been giving out normal size bags, there'd have been a lot more deaths.
How pure was the heroin you were bringing in?
One was 52%, the second one was 57%, which is massive, because even now today, you know what I mean, people are probably getting 20–25%. Yeah, I remember the guard stopped me one day and he was saying, "Hart, do you want to bleed and cut your heroin? It's killing people. There's people fucking dropping left, right and centre." And I was like, fuck off, I don't sell drugs.
The Garda were not the only people keeping a watchful eye on Wayne's activities. One evening, men posing as IRA volunteers raided his home.
They kicked the door in, yeah, you know what I mean, and they were looking for me and put the lads in the ground with guns, and the lads were saying, "No, he's not here, you know what I mean?" And then I asked the lads, "Had they got gloves in them?" I said, "No." I said, "They locked her in the bathroom and they brought you into the separate room," so they were at the handling doors all over the fucking place. So they were either very fucking stupid or they weren't well trained, you know. So as I said, I had connections. Within 2 hours I found out who they were. Do you know what I mean? They were more like activists, people like to say they're part of something, you know, when a lot of them aren't. Sometimes they're just fucking paper sellers, half of them, armchair IRA men.
Armchair IRA men or not, Wayne knew that gunmen or the police could return to his home at any time, but he failed to heed the warning signs and was eventually arrested.
The force were always after me, you know. I've had them dressing up as cowmen and everything, knocking on doors of houses where I lived, and, you know, trying to catch me with stuff and like that. As I said, I was never actually caught with stuff. They said, this was a good one, they said they found a quarter of bleeding heroin in a bird's nest in the roof of the house or something. I don't know what they were saying, you know what I mean? The houses had been searched 3 times, they found nothing, and then they went outside, searched it again, and all of a sudden they found this bleeding 8 a gear in a bird's nest or something. You know what I mean? I'd say they were after getting her off someone that had got her off me or whatever, you know what I mean? Because I would have been the only one around with that kind of strength gear at the time. You know what I mean? That's what kind of sealed me fate then. But yeah, look, it saved me fucking life.